Hello there. Welcome
Hey.
to Beyond the White Coat. I'm your host, Dr. Zwade Marshall. Again, this podcast is built on a simple belief that physicians are more than their credentials. We're evolving identities, and the most interesting careers in medicine are often the ones that don't move in straight lines. Today's guest embodies that evolution. From disarming explosives in the U.S. Army to demystifying anesthesia for millions online, Dr. Zach Meade has turned pressure into purpose. Zach is a former Army Explosive Ordnance Disposal technician, like a real life Jack Ryan, Jason Bourne type. Electrical engineer and anesthesiologist trained in systems based curriculum, and now a medical educator using humor and clarity to combat misinformation in the digital age. We, our team first met Zach in Philly, and after a hallway conversation, it was obvious that his story needed deeper unpacking. And because reinvention isn't abandoning your past, it's building upon it. Zach, welcome to Beyond the White Coat.
Hey, thank you. You probably don't remember. I actually also met at the San Francisco ASA in 2023.
I do not remember that. That's awesome.
That's okay.
Yes.
I was much less memorable back then.
I mean, you are the behemoth that you are today. So take us back to the moment that you realized that medicine would be your next mission. How did you take your experience in the EOD, operating under extreme pressure? How did that shape the way you approach the OR today?
Well, ironically, when I started off in the military, I kind of had this choice between bomb squad or combat medic. I'm like, I can't do combat medic. Like, I can't sew someone up. I can't deal the blood, right? I'll pass out. Here I am, you
But
know.
bombs are cool.
Yeah. I was like, well, if I mess up doing a bomb thing, that's on me. And suddenly also, I don't care because I don't exist. But if I messed up on a person, I was like, man, could I live with that? It,
Yeah.
it's a different kind of stress.
So I'm sure you do like I do, meet students, trainees all the time thinking about careers, and they'll ask, why anesthesia? For someone who thought the gore and blood in the military was too much, but now you're in the OR dealing with gore and blood day in, day out. What was it for you that made this connect?
My recruiter actually joining the military taught me something that I think is very true, that humans aren't designed to do a lot of the things that we do, but we can adapt to it. And that's true in the military, in the bomb squad. That's been true in anesthesia. So when you're working under stress, when you're running codes, when literally blood is squirting across the room, you do it enough and you've adapted and it becomes muscle memory. And same thing in the bomb squad when you're, cutting the red wire. It's always the red wire, by the way. It becomes muscle memory in a way, and you want that because you want your active cognitive functions to be thinking about the things that may be changing or maybe a little bit different, and you want the other 90% of your environment to just be going on autopilot, right?
Yeah,
Does that make sense? I hope.
it does. I think engineering to me also makes sense for anesthesia because we're very process driven. I think pilots, engineers have a lot in common with what we do in the operating environment. But the other thing that's really interesting about you, Zach, is your humor, right? You've got a quick natural wit that is effortless. There are folks that try to be funny, but yours just kind of comes out effortlessly, and I think that's a large part of your appeal online. And it's super disarming, but it also helps
I
you
like
to.
what you did there. Disarming. That was good.
Yeah. Right. Wow, I didn't even.
No
I'm
pun
two,
intended.
I'm 2 beats behind you. Sorry, but yeah, got it now. Were you always that way? Like, were you the kid in class in grade school that was naturally funny, and did humor kind of carry you out through your upbringing?
I wasn't always the class clown. I think in high school, I kind of tried to grow into that role. I did have a really tough upbringing. And honestly, my dark humor and humor, as I learned in med school, is a defense mechanism. And so I did use that to cope growing up. I was in and out of foster care and stuff. And that was, an adventure. And I think that did help me. And then obviously when you join the military and then you go on to medicine, for me, that whole pathway is stressful, anxiety provoking, and you're dealing with so much. So I, leaned on humor as my coping mechanism. sometimes at my expense, sometimes at others.
I want to rewind a touch because you said a lot of things there that I want to unpack just a little bit in the short time that we have together. I think there's so many of us that carry our personal narrative that made us who we are that folks don't get to see and understand when they see us in the cape and the quote as these exalted physicians. But clearly, you just alluded to a challenging childhood, and I think more challenging than most, right? In out of foster care, tell us about some of your early upbringing, and then the real inspiration for the military and then medicine ultimately because of who you are and where you grew up.
Yeah. It was not fun, watching my parents fight this cycle of abuse and addiction and being on the forefront of that and being in a system that it's not the best system, but I will tell you, I'm one of the few that came out of the system better than I entered it, right? Lots that we can unpack there, but moving forward, I ended up finding my calling, my faith, and I wanted to help save lives, right? That was my God given calling. And so I thought, what better way to do it than to join the military and like diffuse bombs? Instead of taking lives, I was trying to help save lives. And that's one thing that led me that route. And
Sure.
then naturally, I wanted to give back to veterans and help all those service members that lost arms and legs and eyesight. So I actually studied electrical engineering. I'm like, well, I can do that through engineering and make medical devices. And then I was an EMT and a firefighter during college, finishing my bachelor's degree. I'm like, well, actually, I think I like the EMT stuff. So I can still help veterans just from the medicine side and I can still make medical devices. And somehow I ended up here on a podcast.
What were you an only child? Did you have siblings going through that process with you?
I had two whole siblings, two half siblings, and then many step siblings. My parents split up. So it's always a fun family reunion.
Sure. And what is the reaction now that you've had this incredible journey and you haven't lived half your life yet? So there's so much more to see from you. What is the overwhelming like? What is your role in your family dynamic with who you are today?
That's a good question, man. And that's the most challenging thing is balancing this. And right now I don't have good balance, to be very honest. How do you do social media residency? I'm in my last few months of residency. Um, I still got to study. I still got to pick the kids up from daycare and school. I I don't know, I'm not doing it well, so I'm working on that, and my family needs me more than I'm probably giving them, so
How many kids?
I have 2 kids, yeah, 2 boys, they like to fight.
Fantastic. So talk to me a little bit about what the ultimate plan is. You're about to finish residency pretty soon. It's match season in a couple of weeks here, and we know that's a huge transition time for folks that are entering residency from medical schools, entering the workforce from residency or fellowship, and it's a challenging but exciting. I think for me, that was the most fun. Anticipatory event, the one where I was gonna finally like see my dream realized to interview for jobs and figure out like where I'm gonna end up. What is that process like for you, and what is your goal post graduation?
Well, let me just say, you said for you that was seeing your dream realized, and when I was in the military, I remember thinking, "Oh, I can't wait till I graduate high school and I go to basic," and when I was in basic, I'm like, "God, this sucks. I can't wait till I go to my bomb squad training," and I'm like, "Dang it, this sucks more." I can't wait to in every stage I was like, man, at some point I stopped myself. I'm like, I gotta stop looking forward to the next thing because I'm letting that still the joy from today.
Sure.
And so when I entered med school and I knew it was a long road, I said, no more of this. I can't wait till I'm a resident. I can't wait till I'm an attending. I'm like, I'm enjoying the time now and I'm living my dream now because, and then I thought about this. Remember, your first day of med school, that was the thing you dreamed about 4 years ago for four
Right.
straight years.
Right.
You literally were living your dream. And so now every day when I'm like, oh, days are rough. I just can't wait to be at attending. I'm like, remember, Zach, being a resident was your dream. You're living it.
Yeah.
It and frankly, that's where I'm at, and it just sounds weird. I don't have any grand plans yet. I tried to be an astronaut. I applied last year. I made it a little bit in the cycle, but I didn't get picked up, obviously. So I don't know. We'll see. Like, I'm an opportunistic. Like, what comes my way, what doors God opening, and we'll see what happens.
When I read your bio, the formal one, You reminded me of an astronaut anesthesiologist that I'd met when I was in residency at Harvard. He had a military background, was a commander in the Air Force, and I think the collection of skill set that you guys have make for incredible astronauts, and it's a heck of a training program to get there as well. So I'm not surprised you mentioned that. I think in my case, enjoying the journey was always a challenge because you're kind of like going through the slog, right? And something about finally not having to kind of play by everyone else's expectations of me. And like I mean, even at the beginning of the process of fourth year of my last year of residency, I was still pretending to be an academic, right? So I knew inside of me I was a private practice doc. I didn't enjoy research. I didn't enjoy teaching. I think the generation of teachers and educators today, it's so much more engaging than what I was accustomed to in the past. And I just knew I couldn't bring material to life the way you do. And so I didn't want any parts of educating the next generation of anesthesiologists. So it was going to be private practice. But it still felt taboo to say that openly, right? Like it felt like I needed to pretend that the curiosity of being a thought leader, a pioneer in the field was something that I was pretending to be for the entire time. So once I started to interview in private practice and negotiate with my future employer to like a normal human would, where there's not this kind of asymmetry in information when you're interviewing for residency. Well, first of all, there's a match for residency. It's not a true supply demand interview that you get to say, I want to be here or there. And fellowship, it's similar. So it was the first time I had the freedom to say, well, I've worked so hard for so long. And now I get to just kind of like extract my pound of flesh from the system. Exactly. It's time to pay the piper, right? And so it's my first job, and it felt super freeing for me in that sense.
I mean, the idea that soon I can go to Chipotle and order guac and queso and not worry about it, that that's exciting.
So Zach, in your have you at least like figured out if you're going to be doing private or academic, and are you thinking about geography and where you end up?
So it's something I don't talk about a lot. I'm not ashamed of it. I just try to avoid this. But I am an active duty Navy physician, and so anything I say, is not representing my employer, the DoD, the DHA, or the Navy. Mandatory disclaimer there, since I'm saying this. And I'll be staying in Southern California, working at one of the military bases. And clinically, it's a light load, so I will be doing also like per diem work or locums work as well to maintain some of my more, advanced clinical skills.
Got it. And will you have the flexibility to continue to educate the world the way you do?
I will have, as you could probably appreciate, more flexibility than in residency, so I'm
Perfect.
excited.
And I ask that because of some of the employers. A lot of our listeners like to kind of navigate what to expect in the employed world, right? And how to navigate. I've got outside interests. Do I have to get special permission to pursue, podcasting and influencing or locums tenens work? Navigating that within your environment was pretty straightforward, and you didn't have to go hat in hand to ask for the time.
Uh, Um, it was straightforward. It had to be all my time, right? Like in
Sure.
60, 70, 80-hour weeks. So sometimes I didn't have much time. The most difficult thing for anyone, I encourage any physician out there or resident to start posting content because you can save a life by making what you think is a simple video, and you will change someone's life by fighting misinformation. But when you do that, there's risk. And that was the most difficult part is I have had to talk to my superiors more than one time about my videos. And honestly, if you watch any of my content, I don't put anything risque out there. It's mostly just good information. But whatever message you think you're delivering is not always the message others hear.
Sure. Sure. Um, so that's thank you for sharing that. Um, say a little bit more. How do we navigate educating folks that are not as versed in the art of digital education? Like part of what your soapbox has been, it's a balance between humor, authority, and trust in an era of misinformation. And as a very highly educated professional, you do so much to dispel myths within healthcare, right? Uh, and the method, the way that you do it, may confuse folks who are not geared to hear the message the way you're intending. So, what does a conversation look like with a superior if you're called into the principal's office per se for content that they just don't understand?
Well, most of the time when something's happened with me and my employer, and I have some group chats with other content influencers, and they mostly have the same issues I actually have, and it's not about the actual content because I have spoken to someone at the hospital and they're like such and such complained about this video, we reviewed it, and technically their complaint like is crazy and it makes no sense. We're just letting you know, like
Sure.
the most fragile plaintiff maybe should not curb your behavior, but you should be aware that the most fragile plaintiff exists. But the things that do get us in trouble would be things like logos, using work equipment, or, in my instance, anything within a federal government building or location, once you're beyond within the federal government gates, is off limits, period. Like, even in your office where there's no identifying features, things like that can potentially, so the most simple benign things you would be like, "Oh, this is fine." It's not. And that, even in private, other centers, some of the other content creators, they have the same thing, like, one got in trouble for talking about a certain brand of sunscreen. He was a dermatologist, right? You
Hmm.
don't even think about this.
Hmm. Wow. Interesting. Um, I think this is going to become a lot more common, and I think because of your leadership here, a lot of folks are finding ways to have a voice online. Uh, Much like I am with this podcast, right? This is new. I am not a social media guy at all. My team thought that it was a way for us to generate positive content because lots of folks want to ask questions of us about, and it's really about journey. It's not so much about money or lending. It's more about how did you get to do what you're doing, and give us some helpful advice and tips. And then we want to get folks like you on here who represent the diversity of like just fulfillment within the profession that does not look the way you may have imagined medicine or a doctor to look 20 years ago, just because of the disparate ways we think and how we can utilize the platforms we have to make an impact. And you're a huge exemplar of that. Um, as we come to a close, I just would ask you to share anything that you think the graduating resident fellow medical student should be considering as someone who's now at the end of residency and had a phenomenal impact on the world of folks that listen to you. What are some of the things that you wish you knew before that may have enhanced your experience within your training program? For me, I said, like, I wish someone told me that there was an AKT zero exam on that first day of residency, right? Like, like, like when I went in there on day zero and bombed the thing, and then spent the next summer panicking about how poorly I did in that first exam. What do you wish you knew?
What if you haven't learned it already, I would get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. You, as especially in anesthesia, but anyone going to med student to intern or maybe from a civilian to med student, remember, it's your first time doing literally everything you're doing. And in anesthesia, that happens during intern year. You get imposter syndrome. You're like, man, I'm about to kill this patient by giving them too much Tylenol. Tylenol, this is what's going to get me. Um, and then you get used to that, and but then and you think you got it at the end of intern year, and then you get to CA 1 year, and you're like, I got this, and then that AKT slaps you in the face, and then it's like intern year all over again because now everything you're doing is new yet again. And embrace feeling uncomfortable. Embrace acknowledging and not knowing what you don't know. Like today, we had a lecture and someone said something about like Taylor's diffusion law. And I'm like, I'm going to be honest, guys. Probably I knew that at one point. I don't recall those words ever, though. What is this? And I'm like about to graduate. And don't be embarrassed to ask the question because if you're thinking of the question, someone else is. It's never too late to, just embrace that feeling, ask questions, be comfortable.
I love it. It's one of those things that I miss. Being now, I own my own practice. So I don't have those butterflies within an environment of being really uncomfortable, unless it's something like clinical that's unusual. But those moments are moments of growth. And the discomfort makes you lean in more to why you're feeling anxious. And in my case, it makes me kind of hunker down and do the work more to kind of put that feeling to bed. Zach, thank you so much for your time this evening. It was a pleasure chatting with you. We will look forward to seeing your content even more online. Thanks so much for the time, Zach.
I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.